Thomas and Percy puffed across the countryside. But when Thomas and Percy arrived at Brendam Docks, they saw Sir Topham Hatt. He was with the railway inspector. "Oh no," puffed Thomas, "the railway inspector, but I'm still dirty." So Thomas raced back to the washdown. When Thomas got to the washdown, James was already there. "I'm going to be the shiniest at the inspection," James sniffed. "There's no point in you even being there." This made Thomas cross. He wanted to win first prize more than ever. But James's red coat did look very shiny. "I hope my blue coat can look as shiny as James," Thomas puffed to himself. And he steamed back to the docks. Percy and Thomas shunted the quarry freight cars into place. When they had finished, Percy was dirty, and Thomas was dirtier than ever. So they raced to the washdown as fast as they could. This time, Gordon was there. "All done," Gordon puffed proudly. Thomas thought Gordon looked splendid. Then James and Emily pulled into the station. They looked splendid too. Emily's wheels looked shinier than ever, and James's red paint sparkled in the sun. Now Thomas was worried. "There's no point in going to the inspection," Thomas puffed sadly. "We'll never win." "Of course we can win," Percy puffed. "We just need a good clean." Percy and Thomas were covered in soap suds. They were scoured and scrubbed and brushed and buffed. Percy loved being washed, but now Thomas was sad. He thought he would never look as grand as the other engines. James, Emily, and Gordon were waiting for the railway inspector. "The sunlight here makes my dome sparkle," Gordon puffed proudly. "It makes my red paint look shinier than ever," said James. "And my wheels glimmer," Emily added. The engines tried to find the sunniest spot in the coal yard. So James backed up. Suddenly, he bumped into a freight car. The freight car rolled into a lever, and then there was a whooshing sound. "Oh no!" James puffed. Coal poured out everywhere. It poured onto the tracks and all over Gordon, James, and Emily. They weren't gleaming and shiny anymore. Sir Topham Hatt and the railway inspector arrived. "These engines are filthy," the railway inspector said crossly. "I've never seen so much coal dust." Just then, Gordon blew to clean his funnel. Coal dust shot into the air. It covered Sir Topham Hatt and the railway inspector. "Sorry," coughed Gordon. At last, Thomas and Percy arrived. When the railway inspector saw Thomas and Percy, he was delighted. "You two are just what engines should look like," he said. Thomas and Percy won first prize. The railway inspector gave them each a special rosette. Thomas and Percy beamed with pride. "I'm glad you made me come to the inspection," puffed Thomas. "It's just like you said," puffed Percy. "A really useful engine can look as grand as any engine." Thomas and Percy are playing hide and seek. Percy is hiding from Thomas. Percy blows his whistle to help Thomas find him. When Thomas is close, Percy's whistle sounds very loud. When Thomas is far away, Percy's whistle sounds very quiet. Where should Thomas look first? At Knapford Station? Thomas listens to Percy's whistle. It sounds very quiet. Percy isn't hiding here. Where should Thomas look next? In Henry's tunnel. Thomas listens to Percy's whistle. It's louder, but it's still not very loud. Percy isn't there, but Thomas is getting closer. Where else can Thomas look? Tidmouth Sheds. Now, Percy's whistle sounds very loud. Percy must be hiding in there. We found you, Percy. Well done, Thomas. It was Christmas time on the island of Sodor, and Sir Topham Hatt's engines were busy. The snow made their journeys difficult. They had to work hard to deliver passengers and goods to their destinations on time. This made the engines feel very reliable. Elizabeth pulled into the fitter's yard with Thomas's snowplow. I don't need that silly old thing, huffed Thomas. Stuff and nonsense, steamed Elizabeth. You can't be a reliable engine if you can't get through the snow. That made Thomas cross. You know I'm reliable. I just don't like my snowplow. Elizabeth is rude, Thomas chuffed. And this snowplow makes my buffers ache. Later, Thomas saw Sir Topham Hatt talking to Elizabeth. The Sodor Cake Factory is snowed in. Their Christmas cakes must get to the docks before the ship sails for the mainland. Let me do the job. I need you on your line, Thomas. Besides, Elizabeth knows those roads well. She's very reliable. I'm reliable too, huffed Thomas. Apparently not reliable enough, Elizabeth chuffed. Now Thomas was crosser still. The snow was heavy, but Thomas arrived at every station right on time. Elizabeth was struggling to stay on the road. Her wheels did not like the slippery ice at all. When Thomas arrived at the docks to pick up Terence, he was surprised that Elizabeth had not returned. The ship will miss the tide, said the dock manager. And the children won't have their Christmas cakes. Thomas, go and look for Elizabeth at once. Yes, sir, answered Thomas. Perhaps Elizabeth isn't so reliable after all, he whispered. At the cake factory, Elizabeth was piled high with crates of Christmas cakes. Sir Topham Hatt's counting on me. I mustn't be late. She chuffed onto the icy road. Suddenly, she was on a steep hill. Her driver applied the brakes. Elizabeth slid out of control into a deep snowdrift. Poor Elizabeth. Thomas and Terence puffed through the swirling snow. They couldn't see Elizabeth anywhere. Soon they spotted her driver. He was standing by the level crossing. Elizabeth is stuck under the snow, her driver explained. I need help to dig her out. Terence rescued her in no time. We will have to hurry, said Thomas. It wasn't your fault, Elizabeth. It's the slippery roads. Elizabeth felt much better. Thomas chuffed and puffed as fast as he could. They reached the docks just in time. Sir Topham Hatt was delighted to see the bakery crates and that Elizabeth was safe and well. We'll get you unloaded immediately. Now the children will have their Christmas cakes, said Thomas. Well done, said Sir Topham Hatt. Oh, thank you, Thomas, said Elizabeth. You and I are both reliable. Thomas agreed. Thomas and Percy have to move some troublesome trucks. Thomas is pushing. And Percy is pushing too. But the troublesome trucks are going nowhere. Can you see why? That's right. Thomas and Percy are pushing against each other. No wonder it's so difficult. Let's try this again. This time, Thomas is pulling instead of pushing. And so is Percy. But the troublesome trucks are still not moving. Do you know why? Thomas and Percy are now pulling against each other. What should they do? Exactly. One should push and the other should pull. And between them, Thomas and Percy will move those troublesome trucks in no time. Working together makes a job easier. Edward is the same color as Thomas and the same size as James. He can pull coaches and push freight cars. And he often works as a back engine. But Edward is old and not as strong as the other engines. So sometimes Edward feels left out. The Duke and Duchess of Boxford came to visit their new summer house. They came on their own private engine called Spencer. Spencer is big and silver and very fast. When Spencer pulled into Knapford, his driver had exciting news for him. You have beaten Gordon's record, he said. Of course, boasted Spencer. I'm faster and finer than all the engines on Sodor put together. Sir Topham Hatt's engines were very cross. Spencer's just a big silver show-off, sniffed Gordon, and everyone agreed. Sir Topham Hatt spoke to the engines. Spencer will take the Duke and Duchess to their summer house. Another engine will take their furniture. Sir Topham Hatt's engine saw the chance for a race. Please, sir, said Thomas, Percy, Gordon, and James all together. May I go? You all have other work to do, boomed Sir Topham Hatt. Edward will take the furniture. James and Gordon groaned. Fancy sending a back engine to do an express engine's job, sniffed Gordon. He'll lose the race and let the whole railway down, said James. Thomas and Percy were cross. Edward was their friend. Spencer has a bigger boiler, said Thomas, but that just means more hot air. An honest steamy can beat a pouty puffer any day, added Percy. Edward set off. Slow and steady. We'll do my best, we'll do my best, he puffed. Spencer set off and quickly passed Edward. I've won already, he boasted. And with a whoosh, he was gone. Edward came to the bottom of a steep hill. The freight was heavy and he felt very tired.